Hello, tabletop RPG friends, family, and foes. I can't believe everyone just went completely mad then. I was my name is Fiona. It's already started. She, her pronouns, and welcome to this very special Horde of Tales Women in Gaming panel. As I in my head go tropes, genre and narrative structures. God, what's wrong with you, panelists? We are so glad that you are here. So I have the absolute honour and privilege of being the facilitator for this wonderful panel, and I am joined by some of the UK's finest game designers, game makers, actual play performers, and podcasters to talk about this wonderful topic. So we're going to go and do introductions. We're going to go round clockwise from myself, and our panelists are going to give us a quick rundown of who they are. And because, as always, when I do these sort of things, I always have to do a patented Fiona fun fact icebreaker question. I've asked them what their favourite genre or trope is. So I will also start first so people don't have to panic. As I said, my name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. I am the facilitator of this panel, but I'm also an improviser, an RPG podcaster, and the odd voiceover artist. My favourite genre is, unsurprisingly, horror. Because I believe you can tell so many different kinds of stories with a horror framework, and you always get something new or unexpected. I think there's so many different factors to it, and I personally love using a genre that explores really dark, emotive topics in a safe, controlled environment. But I'm very aware other folks' mileage may vary with that. I'm going to pass it over to Naomi, please.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and I use she, her pronouns, and you can find me at Naomi Thinks It all over the internet. I play RPGs on Realms Pod. I have a show called Secret St. Kilda, and I've written a couple of ad hoc RPGs, which you can see on other programs such as RP Geeks. And
I've heard of them, yeah.
And my favorite genre is murder mystery, preferably on a train. I love like a locked area mystery. Where it's like it could only be these 7 people, and that's the only possibilities. I think it rewards people for being clever and paying attention, and I like the unraveling of things layer by layer. It's very enjoyable to me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm really happy you're here, Naomi. Next up is Emily.
Hello, I'm Emily Bates. I also use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the aforementioned RP Geeks. We have a little D&D show, or TTRPG show, where we roll dice, tell stories, but try and weave in some science throughout that. We're all sort of professional science communicators in our day jobs, and that's what we like to do. So I am going to really cliche. I'm going to steal sci-fi from Shamini because I know she was going to do it.
I wasn't.
You weren't going to do it? Okay, fine.
Whoa.
I didn't think of that. That's actually quite smart. Yeah, good.
Branding. Yeah, we put everything in space if we can help it. For me, I like the kind of limitless possibilities because it's sci-fi. No one knows what the future is going to be. You can have whatever you want happening. You can have aliens, you can have technology that does things that we can't quite explain now, but maybe one day we can in the future. And I just like that framework and like that being able to play with that and to sort of go into the tropes thing. The thing I like about it is because then you can take away a core mechanic. I like it when something stops working. Like in the Starfinder game we ran recently, faster than light travel stopped working. And so suddenly the universe sort of gets thrown into chaos and everything changes. And I like putting characters in situations where what they thought they knew is just ripped to shreds.
Love that. Thank you so much. And so happy you're here, Emily. Next up, we have Taylor.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Navarro. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a game designer, editor, and project manager. And if you look really hard, you might be able to see me in an actual place somewhere on the internet. Maybe, who knows? That's a treasure hunt for you to go on, and you alone. Everyone so far has done genres. I did pick a trope, but I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to go for my favorite genre instead, which is Regency romance, because I like okay, I like when people fall in love, but I like when there are rules, and so they so they can't like just be in but they can't be in love straight away, and so it gives you like that slow burn, but like a reason for the slow burn. Because when you read the fanfics and you're just like, why is this slow burn? They should be kissing already. Like, but in Regency, there's rules for why they're not kissing, and so I like that Um,
I like that you're like,
I've
I'm a
had
game
a lot.
designer. I'm a game designer and I like rules. She made like rules, don't you think?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ted. It's wonderful to have you here. And last but by no means least, Shamini.
Hi, it's me. My name is Shamini. She, her pronouns. I'm also an RP geek along with Emily Bates. So mixing up science with various adventures, often set in space.
We love space.
It's everything but in
Take a
space.
genre, put it in space.
And had the pleasure of performing with lots of these lovely people, including on Realms Pod with Naomi, with Three Black Halflings, with Taylor, including a live show recently, to MCM recently. Done lots of exciting things. I have picked a trope. I will just be by myself with a favourite trope.
Oh no, you should have said.
I was making faces at you. I was trying to signal through the screen. Don't leave me. The trope I've picked is the tragic clown. Very ancient trope. But yeah, I love a character who just seems funny and carefree, but inside they've got all the feelings. I think it appeals to like the British need to repress your emotions. Not reveal. So, yeah.
You're saying a lot about us, Shamini. Well, thank you so much, Shamini, and it's wonderful to have you here as well. So yes, this panel is going to be all about narrative structure and genres and tropes. And I thought, as a sort of boring bit of admin, because I think sometimes you're like, yeah, I know what a trope is. Yeah, I know what a genre is, but I don't think
you've got to read the dictionary definition of both of these.
Please do. Don't ask us.
I've
like
got
a 7-year-old.
Is it the Oxford English Dictionary? Which one are we going for?
Yeah.
I picked my favourite ones, and this is where I'm going to invite. Yes, of course.
Sorry, your favourite definition.
No, my favourite definitions. It's okay.
My personal favourite dictionary, which I keep 7 copies.
All right. I've lost control, chats. No, of course not. So what I'd say, I'm going to give out these definitions, but I'm going to invite our panelists to, if anything comes up, if you're like, oh, that's interesting, please jump in, because this is the thing. I think, obviously it's supposed to sort of define what these things are. So I will go to first the Collins Dictionary for what a genre is.
It's like a best man speech at a wedding. The Collins Dictionary defines marriage.
So, a genre is a particular type of literature, painting, music, film, or other art form that people consider a class because of it has special characteristics. Whereas Merriam-Webster defines trope as a figure of speech or a conceptual figure of speech. So like a storytelling shorthand for a concept that the audience will recognize and understand instantly. And the thing about tropes is that they are basically they're a convention. You could say it as a plot trick, a setup, a narrative structure, etc. Essentially, if you see a trope, you will know it when you see it.
And it'll be on TV tropes.
If you recognize it, yeah.
I think that we're going to do really well on this book report, guys.
Yeah,
I think we've opened with some
what tropes are now just about.
I didn't realize this was a group presentation. I didn't prepare my slides.
Every single time.
But I think for me, I find it interesting because I definitely use trope interchangeably sometimes with genre, and they are two different things. And I think what's interesting, Shamini, you picked that idea of like the tragic clown, and actually that trope that applies to so many different genres. But like our genres that we've picked has so many different tropes that maybe don't cross it. So I just think they're two different kinds of classifications that don't marry up to the same thing. So I just thought it was interesting to start with that.
Yeah, because
in my head is a collection of tropes.
Yeah, that's what I would have gone with.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that, because you can have something that is. Sorry, I'm here to give it.
This is great. I love that.
No, because you can have things that are technically one genre but don't use any of the standard tropes, and in fact borrow tropes, but it's still that same genre. It depends. It depends on the medium, because, like, for example, in TV and film, like, it relies very heavily on like setting and costume.
But is setting and costume not a trope in itself?
Well, I don't think necessarily it is. I think that the genre has specific rules,
Mm.
and you can take and leave some of them, but it does need like the bare essentials to make it a genre. And then each genre has its common tropes, but then it can have like borrowed tropes. It can like subvert tropes.
Mhm.
So I've run out of words to say, but I'm like I don't think that genre is a collection of tropes, because you could cut all of the like tropes out of something and it would still be like
No,
of the
I think you could cut half of the tropes out. I don't think you could cut all of the
I don't
tropes
think
out.
you could cut all of the tropes. Yeah, I think there is something core that, like as you said, like it retains something
But
recognizable.
would those be classified as a trope then, or not? Like
Yes.
I don't necessarily think that the word trope like encompasses. I'm taking us way off track.
Let's go back to this
No, I think this
definition.
is very on track, right? Because I think when you first hear it, like for me, when I hear genre, I think of setting, and that's not necessarily
Yeah.
right as
Mm.
Is
thing,
in
because-
space a genre?
because well, that's it. Well, I would say sci-fi is though, right? And that's kind of what we do whenever we put anything in space, right? But then we would
Mm.
also say
not
we've done
the same.
horror in space, we've done
Mm.
It's not.
we did Regency,
we did
romance in
romance
space.
and it wasn't
And-
sci-fi.
Yeah, I
Mm.
think that setting
So-
is a component of a trope thing, because you can, like Old Manor House, depending on what the accompanying tropes are, depends on what
bats.
the like
Yeah.
final product is.
Mhm.
It's a combination of factors, but I don't. What was the dictionary definition again? Read it again. I wanna hear it again.
Dictionary, bring back the dictionary.
Like, no, sorry, can we?
Okay, so tropes is a building block of genre, and you don't necessarily. So I think actually
I like that.
Naomi is right that you do need about half of at least half.
Mhm.
I reckon you could probably get away with a third. Like
A couple of really
but
big ones.
yeah, if you have like the big ones,
Mm.
like.
Yeah, I
But
think
like,
what
would you call, like, for example, with romance, would you call people falling in love a trope? Because I don't think that I would, because that's just the action. But then anything becomes a romance, if you see what I mean.
I feel like a trope is a recognizable like
Mm.
narrative beat, or like
Yeah.
a visual cue, or something that you hear and you go, I see what we're doing. You know, it was a dark and stormy night is a trope
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
if you're but particularly if you're doing a horror, right? It kind of adds an extra. Oh no! It all just comes back
Yeah.
round to what
I
is
think
what. But
what we've learned is that tropes and genre are fluid definitions,
Correct.
and that it really depends. But what we're essentially responding to is a recognizable set of things which can connect with an audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too. And I think the other thing I wanted to quickly sort of talk about as well, because tropes, they're not necessarily disruptive to the story. Like as I said, you know it when you see it, which is kind of a silly definition, but we do know, we've already named some examples of tropes. But when the trope itself does become intrusive, when it becomes distracting from the actual story, that's when it becomes the cliche. And then if it's more of a oversimplified idea of something, then it could become a stereotype. And both cliche and stereotypes can be incredibly negative. Certainly stereotypes can be quite negative. And I think I just wanted to bring up, like, I think tropes help us, like you said in a moment, they sort of connect the audience, they connect the players to the story straight away, because you can see those beats, right? But then in our session zeros, we do have the option, say if we take that Regency example, and we know that there are certain structures, we know that there are certain classings. Sexism, exactly. But we don't have to play with that. We can talk about that is a trope, but it's, for us, that's not part of our story. And I think that it's good to know where it is, and it's something to bring up in our session zeros, right? That we know that there are certain attitudes or things that are associated with it, and we can identify it when we see it. But do we want those in our stories?
I think selective application of tropes is one of the things that separates the good from the great. So if you think about pieces of media like Knives Out, that follows a very specific set of tropes. It's a cozy murder mystery. It's set in autumn in a large house. There's a squabbling family. There's a complicated, but it starts with the understanding that we already know who the murderer is, which for the trope, like, that is completely outside what would be the regular bounds of the cozy murder mystery trope. Like, that's the whole point of the thing.
Yeah.
But because it reverses that, it creates sort of a new experience and something more innovative and interesting than just another sort of Poirot Murder, She Wrote line.
Yeah, that's really interesting because so when I started game design, I did one of the Storytelling Collective RPG workshops, and it was like the Write Your First Encounter one for D&D, and my mentor told me that to write like a good like encounter for D&D at least, like you want to take a trope that somebody knows and then you want to subvert it because like specifically for game design, like trying to bring it back to TTRPGs a little bit. Like people don't want to play stuff that they already kind of know what the ending is going to be. Like sometimes they do, but like specifically for D&D, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, where you do actually want to lean into tropes in game design. But it's like it's always better to kind of take the trope and change it a little bit or subvert it entirely to make a like new and interesting gameplay experience for like players at your table.
So might that include things like trope mashing, you know, like
so the example that I thought of straight away is like one of the first encounters I tried to write was like so you're just going along the road and you see a horse running off into the distance and it's got a person on it and you've got to go and like try and stop the horse essentially, and it's like that runaway horse trope of was just like initially my idea was like the horse was scared, of course it's running, so what are they running from? Something bigger maybe. And my mentor was like, well, what if the horse is actually evil and is kidnapping the person on it? Does that not then make for a more interesting encounter? And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that is way more like, and suddenly it's something that the players aren't expecting. And so everyone has that, oh my gosh moment at the table, which for game design, you kind of want a little bit, like not all the time necessarily, but like every now and then to take something that players think they know and then like swap it out with something. Like it just makes something novel and interesting, and so you don't get bored playing the same games over and over again.
Especially if you've like established the genre so that like you're setting up the expectations and then you're like twist time.
Exactly. Get them comfortable and then change it round.
Love a twist.
I think for RPGs, the tropes allow us to create an understanding of the world and the rules of the world in shorthand. Like we don't have to say, no, you will not see a Fiat 500 in the woods because of the kind of, you know, the kind of world that we all understand that we're operating in. You know, if we're doing sci-fi, we don't expect them to be using wooden implements. We don't expect, you know, the archers to be playing on TV. Everything has that sort of sci-fi understanding. And then what it allows us to do is highlight moments of difference that are outside the expectations of the world. And I think that's what's powerful about tropes. I think tropes can be really rewarding. I mean, I don't know about you, but for sci-fi, whenever there's a large box, they're like, don't open it. I'm like, there is a girl in there. There's a girl in there. Open the box. You know, because girl in the box is such a big trope, you know, of sci-fi, of having a large package that you're not allowed to open. And I feel like it allows us to have that shorthand with players of if we were regular people, you know, and somebody said, don't open this box, we'd be like, I guess I won't open the box. I'll lose my job. But like that's not what we're doing in RPGs. We're saying, I'm telling you, you know, through trope shorthand that there is something worth investigating in this box.
So I'm going to point out now, I didn't know that trope because me and Sharmini played a one-shot once where 4 of us were put on a ship with boxes and they were like, right, don't open those boxes. And we were all like, got it. We didn't open the box.
I take instructions.
We didn't open the box.
We didn't do it.
We didn't do it. We were like, sure.
And we got to where we were meant to take the boxes.
We
and
were
were
being
like,
employed for this.
we were like, oh, this has been like 2 hours of this one shot. Maybe, should we... I guess we should look in the box. Very bad TTRPG players not picking up on hints, but I assume something would come out of them naturally. Anyway, so I didn't know that trope, so that's interesting. So,
but I think
a girl.
It wasn't.
Subverted that trope. Then.
Well, there were there were some girls in there. There were
there were
only half then.
What was in the boxes?
There was a load of weird
Dragon
shit.
eggs.
It was weird. Dragon eggs, a stuffed dog.
Because it's a fantasy
and then
trope,
some,
right? So
like,
we were in a fantasy. So
Frozen in
obviously
Time
was
Children.
dragon
It was
eggs.
very bizarre. Yeah, it was all very weird.
Okay.
We should have opened the boxes earlier. It's the moral of the story.
Can I pick up off on a slight tangent of what Naomi said
please.
as one use of why do we want a genre and why do we want a, let's say, sort of collection of tropes in TTRPG, and I think this is probably really what I'm talking about. Well, I might be more talking about actual play here, but like from the perspective of we are trying to, as a team, tell a collaborative story together, with maybe minimal idea of where the story's going, what everyone else wants from the story, what the GM, where the GM is trying to guide it. Like a genre is such an incredible shorthand for us all being instantly on the same page and being like, I know exactly what kind of character I should play, and if a character comes in and says like, hey baby, how you doing, I'm like, but I know who you are, I know how to bounce off that character, I know like the default expectations. It gets you into the story quicker. I do it a lot for one shots because it just gets everyone there. And actually I just shamelessly base one shots off specific films, not even entire genres. I'm just like, we're doing The Mummy, by the way, that's what this is, you know. We're doing Galaxy Quest, whatever, change some things, and then your starting position is solid, and then you can start changing things around. Then maybe something doesn't go as planned, then you have like the
I think it
free will part of things.
also rewards your audience for engaging with the setting.
What do you mean?
So when if for example you were doing Brindlewood Bay, which is a game that I'm running at the moment.
Oh gosh.
You know that it's going to be like the setting that you've set up is little old ladies solving mysteries. So it rewards the audience for expecting, okay, the little old ladies are going to be solving mysteries. I can expect tea, I can expect cake, you know, I can expect interfering, I can expect, you know, cozy moments, I can expect knitting, you know. And I think it's nice to listen to something and be like, for my expectations to be changed or surprised, I think a base level of them have to be met.
Yes, 100%. You
And I
can't
feel
subvert a
like-
trope without being in a setting that people understand or a genre that people understand.
Yeah, so I think when people are listening and they're like, oh yeah, that thing is happening. So for example, sci-fi wise, you know, they're like, oh, a mysterious egg. Don't worry, we're just going to leave that, and we won't deal with it. We'll just leave it in an unmarked, you know, and everyone's like, okay, we know what's going to happen next. We're feeling the tension. You know, we're feeling the expectation because we understand the conventions of this genre and what that means for the story, even if the characters inside don't. I think it gives the audience an overview that the characters necessarily don't have.
That's actually an interest. Oh, sorry, Fiona, you go ahead.
I was just to quickly, because I would say, like, again, coming from an improviser background, I think sometimes when you get given a genre as a suggestion, sometimes you just see the look of horror on someone's face, as obviously they don't watch it. So I get that with action films. When someone says like James Bond or anything like that, I go, I don't know anything. So I do want to say, like, it's okay if you don't know anything per se, because I think sometimes there's sometimes you're like, oh, we're going to play a specific genre, and maybe your gut reaction is, oh, I haven't read anything like that. You probably have, but I think sometimes there is it's not a nerd fest. Like, I've given examples.
We're culturally soaked in it.
We are. I think certainly I am. My sort of generation, definitely, I have cultural references for days. But I know that if I go into an improv scene and someone says to me, philosophy, which was my degree, I will go in and I will nerd out. But that is not necessarily being a good scene partner if the other person is also not nerding out. Because then sometimes, and we do see it sometimes, not stereotyping at all, but when you have, say, I don't know, two cis white men who then talk about Star Trek throughout the whole scene, you're like, well, this is not fun for us watching two people try and outdo each other.
I may have picked sci-fi, but I've never watched Star Trek.
There you go.
The first season's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
But I think
Star Trek Discovery is actually very good.
Look,
Star Trek is very good.
I was like, Sharmini's been trying to make me watch Star Trek for a really long time. I will get there.
Fine films or Star Trek Discovery if you want like a POC like focus. Or Deep Space Nine also has like a POC like main character as well.
Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to say, like, I think some people get really scared when you get stuff like genres and you haven't seen the film. I get that.
Yeah.
When I ran Alien, for example, I had players who had never seen or grown up with the films. They knew there was an alien, massive spoiler, but it's like, oh, and I had folks who were like, I've watched all the films, I've written down every of the like every year and where we are, and so where are we in the timeline? And I was like, I don't know. We're at this time because I want people
Space
to
calendar
enjoy it.
broken.
Well, yeah, so I think my thing is that I do think it's great if you can touch on those media touchstones. Some RPGs have those lists of like recommended readings and stuff like that. I think it's good to absorb it a little bit because then you can get the vibes. So that's like my thing is getting the vibes of it. But you don't have to go in knowing every single element because I think you just get overwhelmed with trying to get it right and say what is enjoyable for you. Sorry, I interrupted you, Emily, a little while ago, so I'll let you go now.
I can't remember what I was going to say anyway.
No.
But I just want to say, I will add to that. I mean, I think you just saying vibes there is probably one of the best words for genres and tropes.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're there for. They give the vibes. Like that's what I think the definition should be. Genres and tropes give the vibes.
Should we write into Collins?
Yeah, we'll tell Colin. We've
Merriam-Webster.
Collins.
Yeah, we've improved upon your definition.
So I've got another little prompt here, which is again is open to the panel. So when we're creating like a particular story or designing a system which is aimed at telling a certain genre, where do we sort of start? I guess is my thing. Like, what do you go to as your starting point when you're thinking about tropes or recurring themes, and when you're trying to create a story?
Taylor, that feels like tailor made for you.
Hey, how long you been sitting on that with Naomi? How long have you been?
I don't need to sit on it because I'm just that good. So
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm making a game, the first thing that comes into my head is what kind of story do I want to tell? So hang on, let me refer to my notes. Give me 2 seconds.
someone who did the homework.
We took notes.
I panic under pressure. I wasn't expecting to go first, so this is why I wrote notes. Okay, so I'm gonna plug a game that was written by one of my friends. Actually, it's called Love Is on the Cards by Purna M and Arman Babu, and it is basically every Christmas rom-com. You are playing it. I played it over on the Daisies and Dragons channel with Valiant Dorian. It's like fantastic, and with that, like all of the prompts are literally like tropes that you kind of expect to see in like romance movies at large, but also some like Christmas specific tropes. So like I think when you're designing a game, panic is setting in, it's fine. Like the first thing that you've got to think of is what kind of story do I want to tell?
Mhm.
And then you think of, okay, well, what mechanics can I use to tell that story? So I wrote a game called Family Album, where you're searching through photographs to find a photo of you with your child, because there aren't many. It's based on the proof of mom concept, where, you know, often mothers, but any kind of parent who's a primary caregiver isn't often pictured with their children. They're in charge of creating the memories, but then they don't get to be a part of them because you don't remember who's taking a photo of you. And it's sad. And I was like, okay, right. I need this to be a solitary game, and I need this to be something where you're actually picking up physical pieces of paper. So, like, it uses a deck of cards. And when you're thinking about, okay, what kind of questions, what kind of tropes, like, do you want to evoke? It's like, okay, right, well, if you pick up this one, it's going to be a family holiday, because it's not necessarily a trope because it's not in media, but it's like, basically game design bleeds into like you're not just going off of like media touchstones, but you're going off of, I guess, do we want to call it real life tropes? Because like a lot of my games do kind of blend from that expectation of real life, and like tropes from like, I guess, tropes from real life, because there's shared experiences that we all kind of have of like Christmas holidays, bank holidays, like doing something outside. You know,
Or even if we don't have them, they're things that are represented in media so often that we have a shorthand for.
Exactly. Thank you. That is actually perfect.
Like I can quickly think of an example, like something from my thing when you're talking about having a picture of you, but not with the child, etc. It's like school uniform. Your first day at class and the last day of class, there's always a picture of you by the front door, but you don't remember who's taking it. It's usually a proud parent of some sort, and you can see you going through, going up, wearing possibly bigger and bigger clothes as you, I don't know, get really, really tall all of a sudden. But it's so that to me was just like, oh yeah, I definitely remember seeing those photos, but none of my mum or my dad, who probably took the photo, and like, it would have been for them a proud moment, but they're not in that picture for whatever reason. So instantly I'm like, oh yeah, that's something I would use.
Yeah, exactly. It's this so with game design, it's what mechanic is going to like utilize tropes, enforce tropes, enforce genre, I'm really kind of starting there because like not all TTRPGs need to like roll dice. Some use tarot decks, some use deck of cards. I'm writing a game right now where you need a coin, a D100, a D4, and a deck of cards to play because it's supposed to be like this chaotic, messy game. You know, so it's like,
I love
okay,
that.
well if I'm doing a chaotic, messy game, then the way that you need to play it has to be chaotic and messy. You know. So I'll throw it to someone else because I've been kind of rambling for a long time.
no
and maybe
worries,
not
that's good.
down through the question.
You smart.
But yeah,
I feel like in mechanism supporting genre, for example, like there's the game The Wretched, which is basically Alien essentially, that uses, or Dread, using a non-branded tumbling tower.
Tumbling tower.
Tumbling
Available.
falling blocks.
Available wherever you get them.
And the idea that that tension is not only in the story but also in the actual physical game space by using something that is so delicate to decide the mechanics. Go Taylor, you were jumping.
sorry, I just bringing it back to romance. I'm writing a romance game at the moment. It might actually be on Kickstarter whilst this is airing. So go to Kickstarter and look for Not Yet, the romance duet TTRPG. That's
Not
something that I'm
Yet.
doing. Yeah, so it's jumping back to what Sharmini said. It's literally based on How I Met Your Mother, and this idea if you have to roll your dice to like get it on the same number to meet the love of your life. But back to the tumbling tower, the non-destructible tumbling tower. Starcrossed is another romance
Yes.
TTRPG that
Alex
uses that
Roberts.
as well. That like that idea of tension, except for instead
In a
of
different
something
genre.
bad- yeah, in a different genre. Except instead of something bad happening when the tower tumbles, I think
You get to make out.
you get to make
You,
out. Yeah.
you give in to
What
your
is this game?
feelings.
I want this game. This
Maybe
sounds-
I've got this game. I will play it with you.
Yeah, let's go. It's not a tumbling tower, and I don't know much about the game at all, other than I heard about the mechanic, and I was like, "This is cool." 10 candles,
Mhm.
where
Yes,
you sit in a
candles
dark
and-
room with the candles lit, and as the game goes on, you like candles get blown out for whatever reason until you're like playing in pitch black, and that sounds terrifying,
That sounds
but-
great.
but
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Oh, I can talk a little bit about 10 Candles because it's a horror game.
Mhm.
And you go into it knowing that all of your characters are going to die, and sometimes your characters die and you have to play a backup character because they die so soon.
Mhm.
And
Did
it's
Fiona
every time at the end,
kill this?
scene ends, you like blow out a candle, and it creates that atmosphere of horror, doesn't it? I think Alice is Missing also does something really good with that
Yes.
Oh, Alice is
music and
Oh, I've
with the
heard of
not
that.
being able
What's that
to
one?
speak. So that one is where your friend goes missing and you're searching for her like in a small town, but it's played exclusively by text message. Is one
Yeah.
of like Spencer Stark's like early games.
And what's great about Alice is Missing, so that's a Hunter Entertainment game. Spencer Stark is the
Yeah.
designer. And what's great about that, they've had another Kickstarter recently to expand it, is that you spend like the first 10 minutes, first half an hour setting up your characters about who you are in relation to who Alice is. And then the whole RPG itself, as Taylor said, it's completely silent. You just use text messages or Discord. And it's 90 minutes long, and that's it. And at certain points, you get cards revealed as the story goes on, and everyone has a part to play. And it is one of the most interesting. I mean, I say RPG is a LARP as well. It was one of the. I'd never experienced anything like that, and I highly recommend those people who are emotionally stable. You might do a cry. It is one of the most interesting ways of doing mechanic without actually speaking, and just being. And there was definitely benefits from replaying it over and over, and certainly with the new expansion of Silent Falls, it adds to it as well. So yeah, one of the more interesting RPGs out there for sure.
I think that's a case of, again, mechanics supporting a trope. You know, it adds to the setting. It helps create the setting. You know, it adds to the vibes. You know,
Vibes.
you're using vibing. You're using the mechanics to create the vibes.
Vibes. Let's rename the panel.
Oh no.
I feel like
Yes.
vibes might suggest we're doing a different thing than what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Women in gaming.
What did Shamini?
Oh, we've killed
Thank you for
Shamini. I'm sorry,
this
Shamini.
I was like, what else could it be?
To take it away from game mechanics slightly and to move it over into sort of other
Vibes.
elements, so to vibes. Well, I am going to talk about vibes a little bit. So
Yeah.
a game I was going to recommend is Flabbergasted by the Wanderer's Tome, which is like a 1920s sort of like Jeeves and Wooster, so lots of bumbling high society people doing stuff. There's a bit of Bladed in the Dark in terms of societies and stuff. I want to commend the Wandering Tome folks because they have, along with a very beautiful book, a very interesting sort of setting, they have a little bit of resources as well. And I wrote down exactly how many resources you get. You get a 90s, 20s accessory guide, a drinks guide, a menu, fashion guides for male and female presenting folks, and lingo. I think this is the most important thing, is that if you have a list of different lingo you can use, that instantly makes you feel really special as a player, and being able to connect to, because there'll be stuff like I can't remember now what it is, but like marks or credits or etc. Those are terminologies we use. We know they're connected to certain genres as well. And I feel any RPG that is written thinking about like what the genre is and having those like words or phrases. Another example is Planescape in D&D. They have a whole list of how they refer to people from the outer planes. There's great words like the chant of it is, the dark of it is, and you know what that refers to. And I love being able to have those terminologies and sort of phrases, because it just feels like, oh, we are playing a story, we're in a story, and it feels in those settings, because like J.R. Tolkien had made several languages, and it's just that's the thing for me, is that as soon as I see there's like a lingo sheet, you bet I've got it printed, and you bet I'm going to try and use at least one or two of those phrases and hope that somebody picks it up on it. So I just wanted to, like, anything like that as a game master, I go, ooh, I want to give this to my players and see what they make of it.
I think that there's then something that you can add into your actual play or your game about creating new tropes.
Mhm.
So, for example, Shamini will know, having played Liminal London.
Great game.
Yeah, I play a wizard on Realms Pod, but you know that if we have downtime, that there will be a McDonald's involved, because that is a trope that we have set up by repeated reference. If we know that if one of us needs to bargain for something, we will say, Chantel's well steep, do you want Chantel's number? Because that is a trope that we have basically carried through, that, by repeated use, we understand that that is a facet about the world that we're creating that we can then draw on later. We know that if we get to a point where it's like, oh, we really need, we need someone to do a charm sort of thing for us. Well, we know Chantel is well steep and we have her number. That is then a trope that we can draw on for mechanical reasons, for play reasons, rather than just for throwaway comedy.
Yeah.
With just to go back to that as well, there is another game I was going to recommend. I appreciate this panel could easily become like recommendations of RPGs, facilitated by Fiona. But
I've got a list if we want.
Yeah, there's Dialect by Thorny Games, which
I love Dialect. I'm mad about Dialect.
So essentially all that is that you can set up a society which goes through basically phases before it sort of falls, and they create a language around that society to refer to certain things, and it's so very collaborative. It goes through these ages where eventually phrases die, the society falls down, etc. Very similar to Icarus as well, that RPG. And I just think it's so great because then as you were saying, Naomi, it is, you set up these things of like, maybe you are a small isolated community in the Antarctic, and you have a phrase to be like, I'm on watch for seals or something like that, and you talk this through and collaborate. Again, I'm not doing this right now because
I have a good example.
Have you got an example? I'll pass it over to you.
I played this once, and we decided that we were going to be foppish sort of Regency individuals who traded in secrets. We managed the behind the scenes of rumors, etc. And so what the game does is it asks you to create terminology for different things. So it's like, create a terminology with time. And so we decided, since a lot of our life is fashion and appearance, instead of seasons, we say next wardrobe.
Ooh.
So it's like, I'll see you next wardrobe.
I
you
love
know.
that.
Yeah, and so
That's
sort of
That's so good.
yeah, and so it sort of builds on the idea, and you're creating
You are
that
building.
you understand that the building blocks of what you're creating, and then you get to stick things onto it and turn those into things that individuate that particular world. Back to you, Fiona.
Oh no, you did it exactly.
sorry.
Yeah, ooh, pointing all the way around. I'm going to move us on a little bit, if that's okay. But I wanted to know, where do you guys go for your inspirations for your favorite genres? If you're running a game or you're creating a particular genre, where do you look to? I appreciate this question could be like, well, obviously films, blah blah blah, books, etc. But I wonder if there's anything particular you would go and do if you were thinking about putting like a mood board together of like things that will help you create the story you want to.
Songs, always songs. I have to have a playlist.
Spotify
Every
playlist.
character has a playlist.
Mhm.
Mine normally come from musicals. I'm a big musical theatre fan, and I
For your
find
sins.
that the emotions for my sins, not my sins. I'll sin again and again if that's what theatre is. I find that, you know, in musicals often the songs are there literally to forward the story. There's a saying that, you know, musicals, they go into song because emotions can't be conveyed by words. And so you often get these incredibly powerful character driven songs. And I find if I can find a song that I'm like, that's it, that's the character I want to be, and I can just listen to that, it like helps me get into that kind of character's head. So for me, I love to find like at least one song, but normally I make playlists. My Spotify is filled with just like random people names and then just loads of songs afterwards. If anyone's through it, they'd be like, what is this? But yeah, that's my go-to.
The key thing is theft. Like, I'm so pro theft, just like steal everything from everywhere,
yeah.
right?
Borrow.
Yes.
Steal.
Don't do a Jean Valjean. Don't.
Appropriate?
No, I think him stealing was probably instrumentally good in the story
I was gonna
morally.
say, he stole bread to feed himself.
But then he stole some candlesticks, and the implication was he'd
But
just
he
been
didn't,
sucked
they
into
gave
a life
him-
of crime.
But he was going to steal the candlesticks, and then
But he
the
did steal the
bishops
candle. That's
gave
anyway.
them to them.
Yeah. Go for it, Shamley. We could talk about.
We're not
That's
arguing
great.
about
No,
why
that's
Jean
it.
Valjean is the villain of Les Mis.
I think we all know the story of Les Mis. Go see it.
I heard, like,
Don't
one-
watch the film. No.
Okay, hang on. Right. So I do just need to share this story about, because it does relate to kind of genre tropes. So the kind of musicals that I had encountered in my life were the ones where you act and then people burst into song. So I went with my boyfriend. I was like late teens to go see Les Mis in the movie theaters, and we got 5 minutes in and I turned to my boyfriend. I was like, "So when do they start talking?"
Yeah,
and-
through one. Yup.
and and it was like, oh, they don't. Um,
All of Les Mis is too emotional for them to
All of
talk.
like, and I just, but like that is like the thing of like, then that kind of brings you into like subgenres, isn't it? Because you've got musicals that are like, hang on, you've got
True
musicals
songs.
that are musicals, and you've got musicals that are musicals, and I think
Yeah, 100%.
That's the technical.
I
if you look up in the
Yeah.
dictionary, that's what
I
it
would
says,
never
yeah.
call musical a genre, even though I'm obviously musical is a genre. But I've seen a lot of.
I think musical is a genre which can be laid upon many other genres.
Exactly. Yeah.
genres.
Exactly. So
Medium.
a medium.
Medium,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not define that now.
I can
Quick,
talk to
Fiona,
Colin.
get the
Yeah, I'll talk to Colin. I'll hand it
Before
back
we
to
got to Les
Shamley.
Mis,
Oh, sorry.
what
Go
were
for
we
it.
talking about?
Theft. I literally,
Steal
I
everything.
finished.
That's
All I want to
Inspirations,
say is
inspirations.
use inspiration from everywhere, steal it, because especially in TTRPG, you're never gonna like, you can steal someone else's entire story and it will never be that story because we're
Yeah.
improvising it and it's
It
collaborative.
meets the
So
players.
Or
yeah,
like-
you're fine.
I mean, from anywhere. Like I recently played a character that was very well, and like, it wasn't full theft this time. So I wanted to play like a Bonnie, as in Bonnie and Clyde kind of character. But what if Bonnie got away from Clyde and like realized that he was a piece of work and escaped? And
it took
Fiona
her
and Charlie shaking their heads because
whole
they know what
season
happened.
to figure that out.
But you know, there was, but like, where would she end up if she didn't get, you know, shot dead in a car? And you know, that's taking like an idea of a character and then being like, but what if this happened to them instead of this thing? And that's, you know, and that's how I like to sort of steal, but it's not fully stealing if you just
AU
change
fan
it.
fiction, yeah.
It's fan fiction. It's fan fiction. I'm
Oh,
writing fan
fan
fiction.
fiction.
Yes, in
Do
my head.
it.
Yeah.
Do it, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So and so character, but with the numbers scraped off.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. Yeah, because I'll see like a film, like one that instantly comes to mind. I saw Renfield, and I vaguely read Dracula, and I was like, oh, this is like another take
Oh.
about Renfield. Yeah,
I know
And I
which
was-
character this inspired.
yeah, and his thing is that he gets his power, his sustenance from eating bugs, and I was like, that's amazing. I'll do that in the next one shot, and then.
Ooh.
Well, it was
Made the
fun.
grimiest little guy who ate a lot of bugs. It was
Yeah.
horrible to watch.
But then it then opens up this idea of like, okay, so my one tenet as this character is that I eat bugs. And there's a thing in improv as well as yes-anding is if then. So if he eats bugs, then what else is true? So
Where
I was
does
like,
he live?
where does he live? He's probably somewhere mucky, probably not great. But maybe what else does he eat? Rubbish. He probably licks screens. He probably does this. He probably does that. So
It was never
Oh.
explained, was it? It was just that was the character.
Yeah,
I
it
did.
wasn't
I
like
didn't have to
plot point.
explain. Well, in my head, that's how. Again, I was just for me fully channeling Renfield, but I never said Renfield, and I think that's the thing as well. Is that there's a game again another recommendation, Trophy Gold, which is like basically it's like a OSR. Like you go into horrible places and to get treasure and get back out essentially. But they have a thing where it says, hey, you've got a bestiary. You're going to throw creatures at these players, these treasure hunters. Don't ever tell them the name of them. They have a bestiary, they have a journal. They can name what the creatures are,
Oh, cool.
so that so if you've got like a kenku, so like a crow creature. Obviously, don't call it a kenku, but you say, oh, this horrible thing with feathers and a huge beak and just cawing madly with foam at its beak, etc. They can write all that down, and then you go, so what's its name? And you go, well, probably a crow thing. And you're like, great. So you can now go back to town and just go round the random taverns and go, has anyone come across this crow-like thing, and then see what they can get in terms of weaknesses, etc. I just think that's more interesting rather than naming it, because as soon as you name something, the mystery's gone. And similar to that Renfield thing, as soon as you say, "Oh, he eats bugs because he's basically Renfield," it gets rid of the mystery of it, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's not as well. Yeah.
so I bought.
I didn't know Enfield, and I saw that, and I was like, "What a great character!"
Oh, sorry, I
Why he's bugs,
borrowed
I love
it,
it.
so.
For
So-
inspiration, I think there's a lot to be said for genre aesthetic Tumblr Google search
Yes. 100.
or Pinterest
Oh,
boards.
Pinterest
You just
boards,
mean
yeah.
you add Tumblr to the end of your Google search for the relevant? Yeah. Okay.
I search in Pinterest a lot for like just put in random like vibe words and then
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
go, yeah, see that thing, that picture that's come up there, that's what I'm going for. Great.
And that's what I'm gonna wear, and my hair looks like this, and I want to do that. Yeah,
I bought a really nice set of dice and they had like I haven't got them near me, but they almost look like kind of stained glass things. And I bought them and I was like, these are just pretty. And then I got them home and I was like, oh, I should make a character that wears like stained glass armor. And suddenly this like paladin character like appeared in my head, which is
Gorgeous.
still not
That's
been played yet.
gorgeous.
So it'll come up
That's
at some point.
beautiful.
And I was like, that's a cool idea. But that came from because I saw some dice and I went, ah.
I think the like underlying level of this is that there is nothing new under the sun. You
Yeah.
know, the hero's journey is not great, but you know the
Wow.
you know that there are only 7 types of stories.
Yeah.
The hero's journey, you come to the place to know it for the first time. You know, we all understand that what is essentially the interior of storytelling lays underneath tropes and genre. I feel, you know, storytelling ideas about, you know, the rags to riches, all that sort of thing, and whatever skin we're putting on top of it had a point, lost it in the midway, but you feel me.
yeah,
Yes.
you're just layering up like
Yeah.
every
There's
time.
nothing
And
new under the
we
sun.
can steal
Yeah.
we can steal whatever we like
Yeah.
because every time we tell a
Theft.
story, because of the way that we're telling it, and
Sorry.
and because we're telling it in our own way, even if it's Renfield with the VIN numbers scraped off, you know, it will still be new and it will still be interesting and it will still be different. And it's okay to take
Steal.
inspiration from wherever you can to steal, because when we do it, we make it new again.
Tropes. Make sure you steal.
Deal.
That's
Yeah,
what
that
I
seems to be a
learned,
takeaway
yeah.
Like, if we want to move away from like the thievery analogy,
I would be.
like it's like just to give it like another kind of way of looking at it, it's like building blocks at a nursery.
Mhm.
Like every
You
kid has
steal them
come-
from the other children.
No,
and put it into your own tower,
You
yeah.
got it. Like year after year, kids come in and they play with like the same set of wooden blocks, and they're like a variety of different colors.
Or
And
Lego.
yeah, like Legos. Okay, but
Such
like
a cute analogy.
Duplo for the nursery analogy. Like
Mhm.
you know that these kids have arranged it every like single way possible, but like it's still new. Like
Mm.
when the next kid comes in and does it all again.
And then one of them brings in their unicorn and puts their unicorn on top, and suddenly it's a whole new thing. You know?
Exactly.
The-
Taylor, you've got to
being
make a
made new
Duplo
is in the making.
TTRPG.
I've got to make a Duplo TTRPG.
Yeah,
You know what?
and it's
Talk
all
to me
about
after this. Talk to me after this.
new
Like
things and old and rearranged.
That's
It's deep.
copyrighted now. You can't have it. Anyone.
We
Other-
would encourage you to steal it as soon as possible.
Don't steal that.
Oh no!
Other building block
No.
places are
write
available.
that down. Hang on. Big words.
Whilst-
Duplo
whilst-
TTRPG.
I'm gonna. So the sort of final sort of question that's sort of to pose to the group. So we talked a lot about stories and it not being a problem if we're retelling the same stories with twists because it's going to be our own story no matter what. My question to you folks, and this could be as a player, as a game designer, any of these things. So what is the best method in the sense of do you prefer? When, say, if you're down for a session or you're designing stuff that the story, you give out each of the beats to the players, like bit by bit, so they can expect certain things. They know where the story is roughly going, although they can fill in the steps. Or is it better just to have it completely organic, give them the genre and see where they take it?
Taylor.
Can I go first on this? Thank you. I want to stress the importance of above table discussion,
Mhm.
whether it's like as a GM, whether it's actual play, home game, and I'll kind of link this back to design in a second, is you have to decide together what kind of story you want to tell. Like you have to come to an agreement. So like, for example, I'm going to bring it back to D&D because most people know D&D. When you start playing, you're like, okay, are we doing a module? In which case, you know that there are rails and that you have to try and find and stick to the rails because you're trying to play from A to Z. Or are you doing a homebrew sandbox world, in which case you know that you can go and touch all the buttons and you don't need to worry about where you're going? Like with game design, it's like, okay, game design is actually split into like core game design and like narrative design. Are you designing an adventure, just an encounter, like an overarching campaign, an anthology? Like, but you have to know what you want to play as a player. Like as a designer, you know what you want to design and you know that people will use it in whatever way that they decide to use it, whether it's a jumping off point for their own stories or whether they're going to follow it to the letter. But the important thing is that initial buy-in, that initial conversation. What story are we going to tell together? Because we're all adults playing pretend, but we're playing pretend with a consensus of, okay, we know what we want to do with this. Like maybe not the specific details, but the overarching, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. And like how we're going to do that is nailed down in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
To stop people from going, no, you didn't hit me because I have secret shield powers.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like, no, you
that's the
can't keep me in
mechanic.
here because I have a hammer in my shoe and I'm gonna knock down the wall.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
But sometimes you're playing the character who in the genre always has the hammer in their shoe, and you go like, actually, you know what? This fits perfectly. I'm Hammer Shoe Kid, you
Because
know?
we agree
Classic.
on the
yeah,
rules beforehand. We agree on the box.
Mm-hmm.
like it's an Eldritch Warlock pack. It's a Fey bargain. You know, it's like we're going into this together and we know what we want to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to re-emphasize my previous point, I really like be able to use genre as a shared language to help us shortcut those above table discussions quicker, get you there quicker. Efficiency.
I also think that there's something really fun about refusing the shared understanding of the world you're in a dungeon, you meet an orc, the orc says, no, you don't have a license for that. this is fancy. We agree generally that licenses are not required to enter the dungeon. And again, this ability to reversal create something, interesting and new. But we all have to agree that that's something that we're interested in engaging in, instead of being like, I don't need a license, I stab him in the gut. And we decide what we're going to engage with and what we're going to allow outside of the box that we would traditionally create.
Yeah.
Great. Well, unfortunately, folks, we're almost at time. So I do have one sort of final little prompt. And again, I think we've had a really good discussion. As someone has said, our producer's gone, we could do this for another 3 hours. I think we could too. But unfortunately, I don't know. I don't
Would
think I've got any
everyone
more.
watch for another 3 hours?
I don't have. I could bring out more dictionary definitions of things. I don't know. That's quite fun.
You've got more.
You know what? I loved it. I love the definition.
I want to see a like YouTube series where Fiona takes us through her various dictionaries. Why she has this one, what
The
it's
proverb
called.
dictionary, the rhyming dictionary. Yes, I do have them over there. Anyway,
Thesaurus out gets wild on the thesaurus episodes.
Ooh, scary.
It goes all over.
My sort of final question to the wonderful panel: is there any sort of takeaway that you want people to take from this panel that's not about dictionaries or theft,
Right down
per
before we
se?
began.
Is there anything that is there anything that you haven't said that you could say very quickly before we go to our outros at all? Is there anything that you want the audience to take away from our discussions?
Genre is an understood box. If you know the box, then you can know what is interesting and new outside of it.
Oh, that what Naomi said.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I want to say, especially if maybe you've mostly been playing D&D, which has its own set of genre expectations and tropes, like thinking of your favorite genre is a really good way, even if you don't have even if you're not ready to dive into a new system, to tell a different kind of story, irrespective of the mechanics.
I also think if you want to tell a particular story, there is already an RPG for that. And if there isn't, someone is writing it. Like, there are so many RPGs out there, and not all of them are getting all of the love that they deserve. And I think we should maybe get more adventurous with trying new things and thinking,
Sorry, I think someone walked up in my grave.
Sorry, Fiona, this is your point. I'll push your soapbox back to you.
No, that's fine. All I was going to say, so as I sort of mentioned, that sometimes people get scared about not knowing all the things about genre. So I'm not going to make you do it because we're out of time, but we could do a practice session maybe after recording. But I was going to talk about an improv exercise called Genre Cauldron, and all it is that you'll start. It's basically if you're doing your session 0 and you're right, well, this is the kind of genre. Say we were going to do, say, a Western. You go, okay, so the genre is Western. So first of all, there's a little bit of object work. So apologies in advance. You take the lid off the cauldron. And you all get around and you sing the song. You sing the song of Genre Cauldron, Genre Cauldron, Genre Cauldron. And then you put in elements of what you think Westerns are. So you could be like, oh, there's someone playing a piano. And then you put stuff into the cauldron.
When you walk in.
Exactly.
There's a horse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you keep going. And it doesn't have to be, it could be places, characters. It could be phrases like "There's a snake in my boot." Whatever you put in, that is what a Western is, etc. And then when you can't think of anything more, this is the object work. Everyone gets a cup. You go into the cauldron and you drink it because then you are imbibed with the vibes of the.
I put poison in the genre cauldron.
There was a snake in the cauldron. We shouldn't. Oh God, it's dangerous.
You can drink snake poison in all fairness.
But if people are feeling a bit,
if you don't have a ulcer, because it's by blood,
It has to go in by the blood. Interesting.
Because it's not a poison, it's a toxin.
Hang on, this is not
That
RP
makes
Geek
sense.
science stuff.
You need to know the answer to this, Fiona. It's very
Hang on.
important.
How do you know if you have an ulcer or
My entire
not?
worldview has just changed based on that one sentence.
I can't believe
Hang
it.
on.
Wait, that's so interesting, though.
Okay, so
I'll quick.
because
The molecules of venom are too big to be absorbed, so they have to be injected.
Yeah.
Although possible, drinking venom is certainly not advisable.
You don't know if you have an ulcer, but it's the kind of thing that like evangelical pastors do to prove that they cannot be harmed.
Cool, not cool.
No, not
Kind of
cool.
Not
A little bit.
cool.
Ah.
A little bit cool. A little bit cool.
I mean, kind of
Bad
badass.
like
not
theft.
cool.
It's not really
Oh,
cool.
big liars. Big lie.
But essentially, the reason I introduced the genre cauldron, although we've gone wildly off topic, I'll bring it back. I'll put a little of the cauldron for now, and I'll put it back on my improv
You
shelf.
shouldn't have put a snake in the cauldron.
I didn't. I panicked. But essentially, it's
all
a way
panic,
to
don't
break
worry.
the ice with new players, and also it's a little bit silly, and that's the worst silliness and cringiness you'll probably have before getting into an RPG. Because I think some people get really tight about it. Oh, I don't have a character voice, etc. As soon as you just sing a silly song and then you pretend to drink from the cauldron, it's easy enough. So I always recommend that with brand new players.
Such
Yeah,
a
what's-
package.
Any other final thoughts before I throw us to outros at all?
Yeah, I have one. Just reiterating, think about what kind of story that you want to create, and you can kind of lean in or subvert, like based on your game intention. Like just really hammering home, like just think about this story. Don't just like kind of go into it because that's how people end up disappointed.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that I wanted to say? I panicked because I was the last person, and I
Oh,
was
you
like,
got some good
"Hey,
stuff to
no,
do.
you really gotta just like think about it." And I think that sometimes people don't want to, like the GMs will do all the prep, and then the players don't actually want to think about it until they get to the session. And it's like, no, if I could have one request, please just put like a little bit of thought
Mhm.
into what your GM
So what you're
is
saying
giving
is
you.
we should do the homework.
We should do homework.
Like
Homework.
not like
You can build that
like,
into the beginning of the
like,
session, though, right?
if you read it, like just read what the homework assignment was. Like you don't have to do the homework, but just read the assignment. Like
Read the assignment.
just read it.
Put
Read
the,
the
put the
assignment.
question in the answer. That's
Mhm.
You can get like, at least a couple of points by just like rephrasing the question.
TVtropes.com.
Yeah.
It's literally gonna like
TVtropes.com. I
It
used
gives
to,
you
I
all
was
the good
obsessed with that when I
examples.
was younger.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got a last thing to say.
Yes. All right.
She's
I-
an excellent understander of genre and trope, and I think she did an excellent job modulating this discussion.
Oh, I did absolutely nothing. I did absolutely
Fiona
nothing.
is
Hiya.
a trope.
Take
You
your
did.
praise. Get your
Oh.
flowers.
I'll take a drink from the cauldron. I want to say
No, it's fine. Oh wait, you can. It's fine.
yes.
No,
Thanks.
you know.
Off after that derail, thank you so much for my wonderful panel for an amazing contributions, and thank you so much for watching. Before I bring the panel to close up, we're just going to go round the table one more time in the same order, and we're going to basically, where can we find you and anything you'd like to plug, please. So we're going to start with the beginning of Naomi, please.
Hi, I've been Naomi Clark. I am at Naomi Thinks It all over the internet. You can find the RPG show that I'm on, Realms Pod, all over the internet. It's Realms of Peril and Glory, and I play a chicken nugget wizard. You can also find my dark horror thriller, The Secret of St. Kilda, at The Kilda, all over the internet. Let's go, Bates.
Okie dokie. Yes, hello, I'm Emily. I've been Emily. I hopefully still will be Emily. I'm not very active on social media, so I'm not going to plug my own socials, but do go follow RP Geeks. We're pretty much on all the socials at RP Geeks DND, so it's DND afterwards. And depending on when this is coming out, I'm just sort of looking in our chat for when, but maybe mid-March. So if you're watching us in mid-March, we're probably currently coming to the end of our Masks campaign, Masks 2044. We set it in sort of 20 years in the future in a sort of
It's superhero,
dystopian.
but in space.
It's superhero. It's not in
Always
space.
on
It's not in
space.
space. It's not in space.
Our branding is ruined.
It's GM'd by the wonderful Zach, who is also on Realms. And yes, that's wonderful. And then we also have, if you love the cowboy western genre, but you want it in space, we have Orbital Blues starting in April, which is defined as sad space cowboys. And if that's not the best genre / trope, I don't know what is. Yes, but that's all from me. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Taylor, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Taylor Navarro. You can find me at TaylorAnnNX on Twitter, or Taylor Navarro TTRPGs.card.co is where you can basically find everything that I've ever written, edited on, or led. I think, yes, if this is coming out in March, then I'm currently in some phase of a Kickstarter for a romance TTRPG duet. I have been making many one-page games. So like rules light, easy to play, cozy cooking game, Chef's de Partie, chaotic star crafting game, constellation crafting, chaos mode. Go to my website. You'll find my games and the amazing people that I work with. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you as well, Taylor. It's wonderful to have you. And last but by no means least, Sharmini.
Yes, I'm Sharmini. I am at sbundell on internet places. And I would like to plug the RP Geeks archive, youtube.com/RP Geeks DND. Particularly, I think for this discussion, particularly a lot of the one-shots that we've done and mini-series as well. Just showing
There's
off
a really good one
systems.
about animals. That you can find out facts about like what happens when you drink venom.
And we need to go to the zoo, and Naomi's going to kidnap the animals at the zoo, and it's going to be great theoretically. But I'm worried about the animals. Naomi's just like, I'll be having an animal. Don't give Naomi the animals. Lots of exciting shows there. So check them out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And obviously, last but by no means least, really, it's me, Fiona. Hello. When I'm not facilitating a panel which included genres, tropes, and something about snake venom, which did go over my head a little bit, to be honest, because I was.
You can drink it.
Oh, I don't want to.
Vibes drink the snake venom.
Vibes
of snake venom. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Unless you have a cut anywhere in your like digestive system, which is don't do it.
Don't do it. When I'm not doing those things, I'm running 2 RPG-related podcasts. I run What Am I Rolling, which is a twice-monthly tabletop RPG one-shot podcast, which we do lots of different RPG systems, and we just do a little taster. We tell you about what the main game mechanic is, then we do a game of it. And so if you're like, oh, that sounds really good, I want to play that with my friends, check out that. But if you're like, no, there's only one RPG to rule them all, I go, you're wrong, but I do also have...
Interesting.
called the DM's Book Club. We read the books so you don't have to, which is definitely not my tagline, but I love it. We're a weekly book club podcast where we take some D&D lore, we look at it and we go, this is great, or it needs improvement, and how can we put it into our tabletop games regardless of the system. And we definitely talk about loads more RPG systems than actually D&D, so come check that out. We talk about with game designers, we talk stuff about monster stat blocks, we even talk about how do you run combat and the different kinds of initiatives. That's how nerdy we get. Exactly. But a massive thank you to our wonderful panel, to our tech producer Darcy, who's been keeping us on track this whole time. Thank you so much for that, and thanks for Horde of Tales for letting us talk to you today. Horde of Tales is a EU-based actual play channel that has a focus on tabletop content within the community in Europe, with a focus on different games and diverse participants. This panel is part of their Women in Gaming month-long event, where the channel hosts women and femme-exclusive tabletop RPG casts. You can find out about the latest episodes, the latest updates of these games and panels for this month on their socials. There's loads of socials of choice. You could do Twitter or X. Ooh, I'm pressing things. X, Blue Sky, or Instagram. Go follow them on the social of your choice. Where is the next bit? You can catch up on previous VODs of Horde of Tales on their YouTube channel, and I warmly invite you to come join the Discord, where you can discuss tabletop RPGs with a host of friendly folks who have different experiences and different sort of backgrounds in tabletop RPGs. So come and join us there. That's all I have in terms of plugs. All there's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the panels and the rest of the games for this month. And we're going to awkwardly wave at the screen as if we're on some sort of royal parade as we say goodbye, and thank you so much for watching.